Welcome, everyone, to this second session of this special intro course offered by the 3PGC for the Russian-speaking and the Ukrainian-speaking communities, and later the other international communities. For this second session, we have with us George and Linda Pransky presenting, and I am going to make a very short introduction of them both because I personally feel incredibly honored that they are here and that they have found it in their hearts to be generous enough to share their time and their wisdom with all of us. So Linda Pransky went to graduate school at the University of Washington in 1975. She specialized in psychosocial nursing because she had an interest in learning how people change. She learned techniques and approaches to helping people, but nothing seemed long-lasting and beneficial. When she met Sydney Banks in 1976, she saw a way for people to really change. Her vision became one of helping people seek real and long-lasting change. Linda was part of the executive committee of the Three Principles Global Community for many years, since its foundation, and past faculty member for the One Thought Institute and partner at Pransky and Associates. And she is now part of the honorary board of the 3PGC. Dr. George Pransky is one of the two professional founders of the understanding of the three principles of mind, thought, and consciousness. He has taught the principles for over 30 years to individuals, couples, businesses, and colleagues. Dr. Pransky is the author of The Relationship Handbook and over 50 audio recordings. During his career, he has served on the faculty of 3 graduate universities and continues to pioneer this understanding in new industries. Currently, he is a partner at Pransky and Associates and on the executive committee of the Three Principles Global Community. Welcome, George and Linda. Thank you for being here. The stage is yours.
I realized I'm the only one that won't have to slow down.
That's a joke between us because almost 6 years ago now, my husband, George, had a stroke, and ironically, it hit his speech center. And so it made him really slow down mentally. So that's our joke.
That's our inside joke.
It's our inside joke. And before his stroke, he used to do most of the talking, and I would be his sidekick, so to speak. Now I do more of the talking. We've switched roles. But I wanted to start with our story way, way back when we first met Sydney Banks, who was our teacher. Back in 1976, when we started to be students of SIDS, what George and I did, how we worked with people, is that we would use techniques and processes, have them go through techniques and processes to find what they were looking for, whether it was happiness or a better relationship or better mental health, whatever they were looking for, we would apply techniques and processes. When we met Sid and went to his lecture up on Salt Spring Island in Canada, he would just talk to people. And we could see that he was having an effect on them and that they were changing. But we could not, for the life of us, we could not see anything that he did, any technique or process, he would just talk. Now, over time, as we continued to be students and totally confused by what he was doing, but we would show up and we would listen the best we could. What we realized is that when we would listen to him, now listen with an open mind, not listen and think, because that's what we did at first. We'd listen to him, but we'd be thinking like crazy. And so it would block, we weren't getting the effect of what he was saying, because all of our thinking about what he was doing was getting in the way of being affected by him. So at one point we started listening and got affected. And how we got affected was our spirits went up. Like our spirits went up and our thinking changed. And we were like very curious about that. So we would listen to Sid, our feeling would go up, our thinking would get more positive, more creative, more facile. And our feeling would be beautiful. When we would leave the island and go home, we lived at least 1,000 miles away. When we would leave the island and go home, we could feel our feeling drop.
Yeah.
And our feeling would go back to our normal.
Yeah.
And we like, well, wait a minute, what happened to our feeling? We had it when we left Salt Spring, and then it just would drop.
Yeah.
Now, when we first listened to Sid, there were no three principles. That came later. The three principles came later. When we first listened, I'll slow down. The first several years, it was just called the understanding. And then later, Sid brought in the three principles. So, but I want to go back to how our feeling would drop, and we'd be really puzzled. So we'd run back up to Salt Spring, listen to Sid, and our feeling would go back up again. But it was a phenomena. We saw that when our level of consciousness changed, our thinking and feeling would change. So when our level of consciousness changed and got very high, our thinking and feeling would change. And then when our consciousness dropped, our thinking and feeling would change again. And we were like, well, how are we going to keep it up? Do you want to say anything?
Well, at one point, we decided that we were, at that time, we were partners with this guy named John Enright. And we said to him, John, we have a different understanding of our work.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, what is that understanding? And we said, well, we don't know how to define it, but we know that we can't talk the way we used to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't understand that, but he respected it. So he said, well, listen, you guys, maybe you guys will take a break from whatever you're doing, and you can go to Salt Spring and Yeah, and you can learn from Sydney Banks. And we thought that was very generous. And we took him let me see, took him up of that
on that
offer. So we brought the kids with us, and we were off to Salt Spring. And at that time, we met Roger Mills, and Roger and Linda and me and the kids were the people who were bringing the message to Sid.
So we lived on Salt Spring for a summer, and then when we went home, we were changed. The feeling of Salt Spring and being around Sid for months, it changed us. And
well, it was funny when we were with Roger and Linda and I together. We were wondering what we'd learned.
mm-hmm.
And it didn't seem like we'd learned very much. The only thing that we noticed that we were much more high-spirited.
We were able to keep that level of feeling of a higher level of consciousness. We were able to hold it, keep it.
Yeah. And otherwise, we said, well, in our private conversations, Linda and I would say, now what have we learned that we could
teach,
translate, to transmit to other people? But we honestly didn't think we'd learned anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, except that we knew when you were up, when your level was up, you did better than when your level was down.
Right.
And that's the first thing we taught.
Yeah.
Like we had a seminar, and we called the seminar, we called it, when you're hot, and when you're not, you're not.
That was
that was our first seminar.
Yeah, that was
and people got it. They loved it because it was true. It was true. It was how the mind worked. See, what we learned, what we were learning was how the mind worked. And that's one way it works. It's like when your consciousness is up, you feel better, you think better, you're more creative.
So that was us.
And when you're down, you don't think as well, and you're not as creative, and you don't have the love or for people, or the feeling for people or life that you do when you're up.
See, we didn't think anything that we didn't think that we had anything to teach. So we asked Sid about it. He said, well, Sid,
what are we supposed to teach?
What are we supposed to teach? And he said, oh, you'll know what to teach. You guys will know what to teach. And he said, well, give us a hint about what we teach. Because we didn't know that we knew anything. So he said, well, listen, you'll know what to teach it. When the time comes, you'll. And he was right.
Now, what he said to me is teach your insights. That's what you teach. Teach your insights. And what he'd say is your insights are what you know. He'd talk about what you know and what you know, meaning that what you know from the intellect is not going to help people, but what you know in your heart in your gut, that will help people. That will have impact because that has feeling. Again, back to the feeling. So Marina, when she introduced us, she mentioned that I was really interested in how people changed. And it's true, it was a burning question that I had that would not let me go. And that's why I went into psychology, is because
you wanted to get an answer to that.
I wanted an answer to the question, how do people change? Not how do people cope? Because there's all kinds of ways to cope. And there's nothing wrong with coping. Coping is great, but it's not change. And I wanted to know how people changed. And I realized how people changed from listening to Sid, because I had an insight that changed me. Now, the insight that I had that changed me was around my moods, because I was very moody. And when I would drop into a low mood, it frightened me. And I would fight it, and I would get all wrapped up in it and lost in it. And my insight totally revolutionized, changed me. Moods no longer became a problem for me. They were like a so what, who cares? It just changed me completely with regard to mood. And I went, oh, this is how people change. They change through insight. A sight from within. That's what Sid would talk about. A sight from within your consciousness, from within you. And so he said to me, well, teach your insight. So I would talk about the insight I had around moods. When I would teach, I'd talk about that. Now, interestingly, some people I talk to, they'd say, well, I don't have a problem with moods. What else do you have?
Yeah.
And I'd say, well, I don't know, but see, then I had to reflect and go, well, what?
And as we reflected,
we learned.
We learned, and we had new insights.
Yeah.
And the new insights would give us something to talk to.
Yeah. Because see, where I went with, when people would say, well, I don't have a problem with moods, what else have you got? I go, well, wait a minute. Moods are just, it's just negative thought. And it's just a critical mass of negative thought that you fight. And that's why you stay in it, because you fight it. Well, other people have critical mass of thoughts and other kinds of thought, like anxiety. Well, that's just thought too. A critical mass of worry. It's just thought that people are frightened of and think into and won't let go of because they're trying to fix it by thinking about it. You can't fix it by thinking about it. So this was my thinking. My reflection is, it's the same. It's just a different way of thinking. Anxiety is a different way of thinking than mood. Different disguise, a different way of using thought. So George and I started talking about different ways of using thought. Because see, one thing I didn't know that I learned from listening to Sid is I thought I could think away my experiences that I didn't like. So if I didn't like an experience, I try to think it away. Well, you can't do that. I mean, if you try to think away an experience that you didn't like, you just get more of that experience.
Can you slow down a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I get excited. Do you want me to repeat that for you?
No,
No?
no.
Okay, well, I'll just repeat it for me then. So
Okay.
I lost my place here. So I didn't know that you couldn't get out of an experience if you tried to think your way out of it. And I realized that if I wanted an experience to leave me, my mind, that I had to stop thinking about it. Now, that was very counterintuitive. And initially it was hard for me because I desperately wanted to think about it. I desperately wanted to think about experiences that I didn't like. So I had to break that habit. It was a habit I had, a thought habit that I had to break. But see, when you see the truth of things, like I saw the truth of you cannot get out of an experience that you don't like by trying to think your way out of it. When I saw the truth of that, then I could find a way. When you see the truth of something, you can find a way.
Yeah, you can find it.
You find a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we started talking to people about how a person uses their thinking. And in one of the passages in Sid's book, The Missing Link, it's one of my favorite passages, when he says that thought is a tool and that you can, like any good tradesperson, you can use that tool for or against yourself. And that's what we do as human beings. We will use thought for ourselves to guide us, and we will use thought against ourselves to cripple us psychologically. And so you learn the positive use of thought. Like, the other thing, this is embarrassing to say at the time, but I used to think that it was thinking negative about things and being pessimistic was a good way of thinking. It was realistic to be pessimistic. It was realistic to think negative. I thought that. Again, I had an insight and realized that that was a misuse of thought for me. I was misusing thought by doing that, by thinking, by believing in pessimism and believing in negative thinking. That was a misuse of thought. Now, see, that understanding, that insight changed me. That transformed me. That little insight, that shift changed me.
See, one of the things that happened to us when we went to Salt Spring is we Sid. I guess you could say he did classes for us. It was just Roger and me and Linda, and he'd do classes for us. So he'd say, "Well, let's have some breakfast," and then during breakfast, he'd teach us things, and then we go get done with breakfast, and then we be free the rest of the day. And we didn't understand that there was a method to his madness. he was preparing us to talk to regular people. And we didn't understand that, because what he said was so obvious and so simple that we didn't give it much heed. Well, at one point, we realized that our level of consciousness was going up, and we realized things that let me see how to say it.
We realized things that we knew but didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when you have insights, they look so obvious and like, wait a minute. You have the experience of, I knew that but forgot.
Yeah.
Or that's so simple. How come I don't
How come I don't know that?
Don't know that. Yeah. So I remember one time, this was very early on, and when George and I met Sid, we were on the verge of breaking up because we just didn't like each other anymore, because all we did was argue. And it was just no fun being together. And I happened to be in Ganges, which is the town of Salt Spring. And back then it was just very, very small, very few people, and very few restaurants. And I went into a restaurant to have lunch, and there was Sid by himself at a table, and we were the only two people in this restaurant. So I went up to him, and it was hard for me to ask him, but I asked him if I could sit down and ask him some questions. And he said, yes, of course I could. And so I said to him, George and I don't get along. And I think we're going to break up, because it's just no fun anymore. It's no fun to be together. He looks at me and he says, well, did you used to enjoy being with him? And I said, oh yeah, when we were first together, we really enjoyed each other. We had a lot of fun. And he looks at me and he says, do more of that.
That was his solution.
He said that was his intervention. That was his marriage counseling.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Do more of that. But see, and at first I was appalled.
Yeah.
I thought, what kind of thing is that to say?
He was, Linda was insulted by.
Yeah, actually I was a bit insulted. Like,
yeah.
I mean, do more of that. Well, what happened is the penny dropped for me when I left the restaurant. I was walking back to my car. I remember I stopped in the middle of the path to my car, and it was like I got hit by a ton of bricks. And I went, well, of course. And here was my insight. If you want to have a good relationship, you have to enjoy the person more than criticize them. If you want to have a good relationship, you have to enjoy the person more than argue your point with them. And then I thought, well, I can do that. It's just where my mind goes. My mind can go to enjoying, or my mind can go to criticism. My mind can look for the feeling and the activity of enjoyment, or my mind can go shift look to argue my point. It's a matter of where my mind goes, where my thought and consciousness go. Where my thought and consciousness go. It can go over here or it can go over there. Well, after that insight, I just started enjoying George.
Yeah.
So my mind would go to, because I was habituated that way, thought habit. So I just had to break the habit of my mind would start to go to and I'd know, nope. Or my mind would go to arguing, nope.
So it's hard. It's hard to understand. It's easy to understand how simply we saw it.
Mm-hmm.
It was embarrassing that we saw it so simple and so practical.
Mm-hmm. And for me, the understanding became a practical psychology. And that's what I was looking for, something that worked, a practical psychology. Now, here's the thing, though. When Sid would talk about psychology, and he was talking about the field, he said, psychology and spirituality are two sides of the same coin. Now, I wasn't into spirituality. I had a lot of friends that were at that time that were following gurus, spiritual teachers, and they were really into spirituality. I was not attracted to that at all, what they were doing. It was fine for them, but I wasn't into it. I was into psychology. Now, when Sid talked about that psychology and spirituality were two sides of the same coin, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I went, of course. It's like you have to have feeling with the words. It can't just be the intellect. There has to be feeling. There has to be feelingfulness.
Or another way to say that you have to have heart behind it.
It has to have heart. It has to have truth.
Yeah.
And truth comes with a feeling. What's true comes with a feeling. The other thing I thought, and this is more, well, I'm not sure what the word is, but I can't remember. But the other thing I thought was, well, it's like the form and the formless. The spiritual is the formless, and the psychology is the form and the formless. And they go to form and the formless go together. But anyway, it did a lot for me when he said that psychology and the spiritual are connected. You can't separate them. And that's what they did traditionally in psychology. They separated the spiritual from the psychological, and that it doesn't work. Now, the other insight that I had that made all the difference in the world in terms of working with people, because it allowed me to feel very confident about my clients, is that he said that everybody sits in mental health,
yeah,
whether they know it or not. Even people who sit in mental institutions sit in mental health. They just don't know it. And I went, oh my God, I have mental health. I sit in mental health. And the only way that I think I don't is because of my thinking. Broken thinking makes you feel broken, but it's superficial. It's superficial. Underneath is mental health, well-being, innate health, wisdom. There's a lot of words for the same thing, the same experience of knowing that you're not broken. Underneath your all of your thinking is mental health, is well-being, is innate health. Now, when I heard that, I calmed down. And when I worked with people, it was just a matter of being patient and allowing them to wake up to their own mental health, guiding them to wake up to their own mental health, their own well-being, their innate health, their wisdom. That really settled me down. And when you know that, when you get lost, because we all get lost in our thinking. You know, even after all these years, George and I still get lost in our thinking. But when you know that underneath you have mental health, wisdom, innate health, well-being, it's just a matter of going back, and you go back. You go back. Because you're tethered there. But see, it's one thing to intellectually think you have mental health or well-being. And it's another thing to realize it. When you realize it, that's all you need. Because you'll always find your way back out of lost thinking, out of the misuse of thought. You will find your way back to your mental health. I think that's the most beautiful message.
Yeah.
That Sid gave us. That everybody sits in mental health, whether they know it or not.
Mm.
And they just have to realize it. So when George and I started teaching, because our relationship turned around, it went from really bad to really good.
Yeah. and that only took about,
It didn't take very long.
Yeah, about 2 months or something like that.
We started working with people on the verge of divorce. That's what we did for many, many years, is that we would work with people that were really seriously considering divorcing, but didn't want to. Those were our clientele for many years. And then one of our clients, one of the couples that came, had several businesses, and we worked with him and his wife. And he said to us, look, I want to bring my general managers. I have 20 general managers that I want to bring. And I want you to work with them. And we said to him, we don't work with businesses.
Yeah.
He says, well, wait a minute. He's teaching us, right? He says, look, relationships are relationships. And you teach them about relationships, it's going to help the business. So I want you to teach them what you taught us about relationship.
Yeah.
So up came their 20 managers and their wives, and we taught them about relationship. And then his business got very successful. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So then we started working with businesses, and we didn't work with people on the verge of divorce so much anymore, but we worked with several businesses. it exclusively for a number of years. Because it's all the same, right? It's all the same in a different disguise.
It's all hearts and minds.
Yeah, it's all hearts and minds. So I was thinking that maybe we'd find out where people are at, or what they would like more of, what they'd like us to, because there's so many things we could talk about, but it matters to us that what matters to you. So I thought maybe we'd open it up a little bit for questions, and then you can steer us and direct us a bit about what to talk more about.
Wonderful. Well, we are taking questions now in the chat, as you know. So if you have a question, just type it up in the chat, and we will read it from there.
The other thing that, besides questions, we'd love to know is what you're hearing that's new for you, what you're hearing that's helpful. We'd love to hear about that too.
Okay, here it goes, George and Linda. First question. Would this work for physical health also, and for abundance? That we have innate health and abundance within us.
Mm-hmm. So we haven't, was that a statement or a question about innate health?
It is a question. Would this work for physical health also?
Yes.
And abundance? The fact of innate health and abundance within us.
No, I don't talk this way. I don't say this very often. But when we were first on Salt Spring, there were people with cancer who listened to Sid, and their cancer went into remission. Now, my thinking about that is that, you can't separate the body and the mind are one. You can't separate. And as your consciousness goes up, your body chemistry changes. There's research on that. And it seems to me that as your consciousness goes up, it helps everything. It helps your body, it helps your mind, it helps everything. So that's my answer. Do you have anything you want to add?
No.
Okay, so second question. I would love to hear your thoughts on the idea of letting it go.
Okay. Well, great question. I love that question. Okay. So I'll give you an example of that, a very practical example. So there was a time years ago when I would get my feelings hurt a lot. So someone would say something and I'd feel mentally hurt. And I'd stay mentally hurt for a long time. And one day I complained to George. I said, I just get my feelings hurt all the time. And I hate it. I get my feelings hurt all the time. And I said to him, I wish I was like you. You never get your feelings hurt. He says to me, well, that's not true. I get my feelings hurt as much as you do. The difference between you and me is you make a big deal about it and I don't. And I thought about what he said. You know, I trusted him. I trusted him. I went, well, wait a minute. How do I make a big deal about it? And then I saw how I made a big deal of it. And here's what I would do with my mind, with my thinking. I would be thinking, whose fault is it? What did I do wrong? What did they do wrong? Should I talk with them? Should I not talk with them? I don't like this feeling. So in other words, I was thinking into it. And that's how I was making a big deal. I was thinking into my experience of hurt feeling instead of letting it go. See, how you let go is just stop thinking about it. It's that simple. You stop thinking about it. Soon as you stop thinking about it, it's gone. But see, it was seductive to me because I was thinking that, well, it's not right. I should do something, or I should punish them, or I should tell them, or I should. It was seductive. See, and I was like, I just gave it up. It's like I let it go. It's like, I don't care who's right, who's wrong. I don't care if it's fair, if it's not fair. I don't want to stay in this mentality, in this state of mind of hurt feelings by thinking into it. I want to let it go. Now, I don't know if that answers you about if that's what you mean by letting it go.
We will wait to hear for her response. Next question. How do we get from this intellectual knowing to a deep understanding? How can I help myself to do it faster?
Okay, that's a great question. Okay, here's the thing. It's all about the listening. Because see, it took me a while to hear Sid because I was thinking. And this is what I mean by thinking. When he was talking, I was thinking. I don't agree with what he just said. I don't understand what he just said. He just contradicted himself. What he said just didn't make sense. What does that have to do with life and me? Well, I heard somebody else say that, and they said it the opposite of. So I'm constantly thinking about and analyzing and critiquing what he's saying, why he's saying it, and I'm not listening. But see, I didn't know what listening was. You know, true listening is a quiet mind. True listening is a quiet mind where you're just taking somebody in. Like the closest way to talk about it is when you listen to music, usually I know some people think about music while they're listening to it, but usually when you're listening to music, you're just hearing it. You're just taking it in. You're not thinking about it. You're just enjoying it. So that's how you would listen to Sid. You just take him in, take his feeling in it. So there was a lot of not knowing when I was listening to Sid. It's like my mind would start to think and I go, nope, leave it. My mind would start to, nope, leave it. So that I would stay in a quiet mind and I keep taking him in. And that's when I had that very deep insight about moods, was when I started to listen. So if you want to get more, you have to learn to listen. Now, my advice to you is there are Sydney Banks recordings on YouTube that are free. Listen to him with a quiet mind. Quiet your mind and listen to Sid.
Beautiful. Thank you. A reflection from one participant is, I really like the thought that we are psychologically healthy.
Mm-hmm. Good. Good.
Next question. What did you find helped when you were redirecting the habitual thoughts to thoughts of your choosing?
Well, see, I didn't need help because I had the insight, and the insight helped me. So that insight to like enjoy George rather than criticize George, or enjoy George rather than argue with George. I didn't need any help. I just automatically would go back to.
It looked like you were seeing the obvious.
Yeah, I was seeing the obvious. So once you have an insight, you don't need help. If you don't have an insight, then you need help.
Yeah.
But people are full of insight. You're full of insight. It's just that it may not come exactly when you want it to. The insights are often unexpected. And sometimes I remember I had a client that came because she wanted to lose weight. She had all kinds of wonderful insights about her life that really helped her in her job, in a relationship, with her own mental health. She really got a lot, but she didn't have the insight about losing weight. So insights are funny that way. You don't know what you're going to get, but you do get them.
Makes me think of that song, you don't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you get what you need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, another comment says, we are in the center of mental health, but we do not know about it. As soon as we realize it, we can go back to the mental health.
Yes. Yes. That's the most important one. In my mind, the most important insight is that one. If you get nothing else but that, you'll be fine, because you'll always go home.
I like how quiet people's minds are when they're listening. That's powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another comment says, thinking negative as realistic gives me hope too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that people think that negative is realistic.
Well, here was my logic. When I'd listen to the news, it was all negative about the world, right? So I thought, well, it was realistic for me to be negative because of all the negativity in the world. Yeah. But I realized that take realistic off the table. My thinking negative wasn't helping me, and it wasn't helping the world. I saw that. Wow. I didn't want to join the negativity. I didn't want to join the lostness.
Another reflection says, I really like the thought that we are psychologically healthy, that we are in the center of mental health, but we do not know it. And as soon as we realize it, we go back. So, and now another one says, I knew that our thoughts are the heavy lead, but I didn't know how to let it go. Thank you.
Well, say that again, Marina.
I knew that our thoughts are a heavy weight, a heavy burden, but I did not know how to let them go. Thank you.
Oh, so she
Oh,
sees
wow.
how to let them go now.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
See, one of the things that I matters to me, that's so helpful to me, is being willing to get over myself.
Yeah.
That's another way of talking about letting go, is you get over yourself. Like, and when I gave the example of getting over hurt feelings really fast, that's letting go of myself, what I call letting go of myself, and moving on to a new experience, letting myself move on.
Another question says, I recently read that we cannot let go of a thought, but that the thought may let go of us. Can you speak to that? How is that the thought can let a person go, but not the other way around?
Well, I love that question, because I've thought about that a lot. Like, who lets go? Do I let go? Does it let go?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's both are true. Sometimes a thought lets go of you, and sometimes you see yourself letting go of it. And in my experience, there are times where it's really easy for me to let go of a thought, and there are other times, it's not letting go until it lets go. So it's not really worth figuring it out, because they're both true. And I think it's an issue of level of consciousness. I think when your level of consciousness is really up, it's easy just to let go of thought. And as your consciousness goes down, it's not as easy.
A comment says, listening means perceiving. That's great. Thank you.
Yes, nicely put.
Succinct, right?
Mm-hmm. Succinct.
Okay. Sometimes there is a state of mind with many different thoughts and feelings that seems like I am going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Time goes by and everything is well again.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting how to get out of this state sooner.
One thing that Sid said that I think was so profound. And I'm not sure what book it's in. It might be in The Missing Link. But he said that human beings have one problem to solve. There's one problem. And that is reacting to their experience.
Yeah.
If they didn't react to their experience, they wouldn't have a problem with it. So it's your reaction to that feeling of things are going too fast and furious, and that chaotic state of mind. If you react to it, and reaction means being frightened of it, really. When you get frightened of or judge your experience, that's another thing. Another way you can react to it is judge it or be frightened of it. It holds it in place. So to the extent that now this is what I found. Okay, this is what I found, and I can't do it all the time. But if I get quiet with the experiences that I don't like, if I get really quiet and just be with them, they go away faster. So if an experience comes to me and it's an experience that I get frightened by, if I just get really quiet So I'm not going into fear. I'm just going into quiet. I get over things faster.
Yeah, but what's your hurry?
Of getting over it?
Yeah,
Well, that's a good question.
yeah,
Because I don't like it.
yeah. I know.
Because I don't like it. What do? You just have it?
Yeah.
You don't mind it?
I don't mind it.
Oh, I wish I was you.
Yeah.
I mind it. So I get quiet with it to get over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Question.
Each to his own. Right?
Each to his own. You see, you find your own way. See, that's what I loved about this teaching. It makes you independent. This is about becoming independent and your own best counsel, so that you use your creative process to find answers and solutions for the human condition, for your humanity, for your personality, for your ego, for your psychological mess that you can get yourself into. You have the creative process and the wisdom to find your own answers. See? So my creativity is, ooh, get quiet. And George's is like, I don't care. So you find your own way. Find your own way. You're independent of other people. Not that you don't talk to other people sometimes about things and get their advice or their input, but basically you go to your own wisdom and creative process to find answers. And you do that, you get how you do that. The way to it is the reflective thought. And everybody has a feeling for what reflection is. Reflective thought has a feeling to it that's different than analytical thinking, or when your mind is thinking, trying to find an answer, analyzing. Reflective is very different.
It's softer.
It's softer, yeah.
That's what's different. It's softer.
Yeah.
Beautiful. There are two questions that point more or less to the same thing. One of them is to stop thinking. Is that to do something else?
Well, you never really stop thinking. It's just your thinking gets quiet.
Yeah.
As opposed to busy.
Yeah. And active.
And active. Your thinking gets more easy and responsive and quiet and slowed down, as opposed to ramped up. And that's a learning. I mean, it's a learning. It's a something. It's, if you want to do that, if you have the intention of it, the intent to do it is all you need. All you need is intention, the desire. I want to slow my mind down. And you don't do anything. You just have the intention.
So all you have to do is head in that direction.
Yeah, it's like heading in that direction.
Yeah.
Like I want to go north, or I want to go south, or I want to go east, or I want to go west, or I want to go to the store. You want to go to a quiet mind. It's intention. So all it is intent. And it's very powerful, because like back to that example that I gave about where the mind goes, you know, when I had that insight about criticizing George versus enjoying him, it was really, I intended to enjoy. Now, when I intended to enjoyment thoughts would come up. See? It's like in a really simple, you intend to paint your house, you have thoughts about colors that come up.
Yeah.
It's intention, what you intend, where you point your mind. Because when I met Sid, I had a very busy mind, extremely busy. I didn't know it. I just thought that was the right way to be. It's the way my mind was, even though I felt like something was wrong. Felt like something was wrong because sometimes my mind would be very chaotic and muddled and confused. And I'm like, this isn't right, but what's the answer? The answer is a quiet mind. It's to quiet your mind down. And like, for example, when you intend to quiet your mind, thoughts occur. Thinking helps you. Because like for me, like when I want to quiet my mind, all I have to do is walk in the woods. Or go out in the garden. And I could name, and I think for everyone here, if you intend to quiet your mind, your best friend, which is the right use of thought, thoughts will occur to you about what to do. Thought is a guide. So there's an intention and a guide. Honestly, it's that simple. You move your mind. I want to quiet down. What would work? What would work? But first you have to know that that's what you want to do. Because like I said, when I met Sid, I had no idea I had a busy mind. I didn't know the difference between a busy mind and a quiet mind. You have to know the difference between a busy mind and you have to know the difference.
It's one thing I learned at Salt Spring. I learned that the people in Salt Spring had really quiet minds.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand what they were doing.
It seemed weird, right?
It seemed weird.
Yeah.
And then X amount of time later,
you seemed weird too.
Yeah.
We both seemed weird.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one says, I would like to comment on the comment, as soon as we realize that we are in the center of mental health, then we are back to mental health. The word realize means to become aware of or to become conscious of. Well, consciousness create our reality?
Well, conscious and aware are the same thing. Consciousness is just another way of talking about awareness. And your consciousness, you're aware of, psychologically, you're aware of your thinking, is what you're aware of. You're conscious of where your thinking goes. And it's kind of like a chicken and an egg. It's like your consciousness goes, your thinking goes, your thinking goes, your consciousness goes. So you're aware of your experience. Like that's another way of talking about thought and consciousness is your experience. I mean, we live in thought. We live in consciousness. We're like a fish in water. You can't get away from it. You live in thought and consciousness. Where people live. And that creates a separate reality for every human being. is their unique way of thinking brought to life by consciousness and our sensory system of our body, because we feel our thinking. So thought, consciousness, and our sensory system are all tied together. So we feel our thinking because we have a sensory system, a physical sensory system. We feel our thinking through consciousness, through awareness.
That's really
The basic is the basis.
yeah, but what I was thinking, it's really a little course on 3 principles.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Do you have something else to say, Linda?
No.
If there are circumstances that don't suit me, then not thinking about them seems like I'm not solving the situation, but simply running away from it. Will all situations really resolve themselves if I just leave them? Will they turn out the way I want them to? I want to actively influence my life.
Well, that's a 2-part question. Because what I realized is that when you have a problem, and it's, it's like this, it's a ball of thought, and you were looking for an answer, if you go away psychologically, mentally, go away from the problem, forget about it. You will have, my experiences that I will have insight about new thought. I'm looking for new thought. And to get new thought, you have to get away from it.
Yeah.
So it's not denying it. It's getting away from it to get new answers. Okay. That can solve the problem for you or help the problem. But it's like things, life, a person has ideas about your life, about their life. And then life comes in. Life has ideas about life.
See, the way I would say it is, let me see how to say this. If Linda and I have a problem, we'll go into silence. And then we would expect that problem to be resolved. So that's our way.
But we expect that we will have insight out of silence.
Right.
Yeah. That insights come out of a quiet mind or getting away from your thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that said, let's see, how do I say this? Life can give you things that you don't want, that you don't like. Okay? Like, I don't like that my husband had a stroke. Okay, but it's like he had a stroke. Now, my judgment about that I don't like it, is the problem. To the extent that I don't accept what life gave me is the problem.
Interesting.
See, it's
interesting to say that.
It goes back to thought. To the extent that I'm thinking, I don't like this isn't right, life shouldn't give me this. That's not fair. I don't deserve this. My thinking is the problem.
Yeah.
But you forget that. You forget that. You forget that that's, and see, that's what Sid's message was, the missing link of thought. Because you look outside yourself and go, I don't like that out there. Well, the missing link is what's going on in here. It's very subtle, and thought is so in your face sometimes that it's hard to see it. Now, see, the answer for that, this is what I tell people, and this is what I tell myself. The answer is you look at what you have instead of what you don't have. And that'll, you look at what you have instead of what you don't have. And that'll change everything.
Next, we have a couple of reflections. One says, teach your insights. Understanding came about how to share from what place and feeling. Thank you. The next one says, let yourself move on, resonated deeply. Thank you.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, God. I appreciate this.
Yeah,
I appreciate that you're hearing us. That's nice. Yeah.
Next one is a question. For me, it is news that humans have innate mental health, even those who are in mental institutions, but they may have irreversible changes in psychology and thinking. And is there nothing to do about it, or is there?
Well, they have, what do they have? They have irreversible thinking?
Irreversible changes in psychology and thinking. So I will read it again. For me, it is news that humans have innate mental health, even those who are in mental institutions. But they may have irreversible changes in psychology and thinking. Is there something to do about it?
Well, we would say that
it's not irreversible.
Nothing is irreversible.
Because thought is mental energy and form. So if a thought is mental energy and form, by nature,
nothing is irreversible.
Nothing is irreversible. Now, they may not have the insight to see how to reverse it.
Yeah. But it doesn't make it irreversible.
It doesn't make it irreversible. Now, just think about this. Thought is mental energy and form. Thought is a mental form that has energy. It's not concrete, although we feel it as concrete sometimes. We feel like our thinking is concrete, like it's heavy and it doesn't go away and it stays. And
no, everybody has had that
experience. Yeah. It fools you. Thought fools you because of consciousness and the sensory system. It can fool you and make you think it's concrete, solid. It's solid and real.
Yeah. And that's how it seems sometimes.
And that's how it seems sometimes. Like your experience is solid. It's going to stay forever. And it's totally real. but that's the illusion.
That's the appearance. But
That's the appearance.
That's not the reality.
It's not the truth.
Yeah.
The truth is thought is a mental form of energy. That's the truth. And yet it fools us because it can feel so solid and strong and compelling and real. And then it changes and you go, oh yeah, I feel totally different. Wow, that was hard. And then but if you go, okay, I got fooled again, that'll help you, remind you, get fooled again, fooled by thought.
You could say that everybody's fooled by thought.
Everybody's fooled by thought. You and I are fooled by thought.
Yeah. It's just a matter of time before you get fooled by thought. You know, I was thinking that maybe we should tell people about the books that were.
About your book?
Yeah.
Well, George wrote a book recently published called The Secret to Mental Health.
Right.
And then George and I just wrote another relationship book called Unbreak Your Heart for people who don't want to get a divorce.
Right.
But I want to go back to them.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That was
an advertisement.
A little promo.
A little advertisement.
Yeah. I couldn't help myself.
I know you can't help yourself. Yeah.
I have quite a few more questions. So here goes the next.
Yeah.
Would you please describe what staying in the abundance center looks like, including abundance of money?
The abundance what?
Can you please describe what staying in the abundance center, so in the center of abundance, looks like, including abundance of money?
Gee, that would be hard for me because I don't, I'd have to, I don't.
You know what?
I don't, well, can you answer that? Staying in abundance? What would be staying in the abundance and then also the abundance of money?
Well, I just I can't
relate to it. Yeah, I can't relate to that question. I don't, in other words, I don't try for abundance. It's not a word that I try for. Like words that I resonate with would be peace of mind. That would be something that I relate to, peace that I would intend. Peace of mind, I would intend contentment. I would
see. I think we would say
that if you're looking for abundance, then you feel a lack.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're looking for abundance, you would necessarily feel a lack. In my experience, like if I was looking for abundance, it would be coming from I don't have enough.
Yeah.
And then if you're coming from you don't have enough, it doesn't matter how much you try for abundance, you won't get it. Because if you're coming from I don't have enough. Now, if you're coming from abundance, why would you want more abundance? See? I maybe she's asking or he's asking for something else. I don't know. I'd have to do some intake with them to understand where they were coming from.
Yeah.
Well, for not relating to the word, you guys answered it beautifully, I must say. Thank you. So next question seems very simple, but it's not. So how do you raise your own level of consciousness?
I have no idea. I know when it happens, but I don't know how a person does it. It seems to me that's not something that someone could do.
Yeah, now that's right. He's right. That's true, what he just said. Okay, and I have another way of seeing it that's true for me. Which is that like if I start thinking negative, I can lower my level of consciousness. So I'll catch myself and stop.
Oh, okay. That's fair enough.
Yeah, but here's the other thing is that, and I know this is going to sound weird. But like I like it when my consciousness goes up, but I don't care anymore whether my consciousness goes up. I don't really care. It's like I'm not looking, because I used to look for it all the time. Get my level up, get my level up. And now it's like, I don't care because I know it will go up. I'll go all over the place. You know, a thought will take me all over the place. You know, up, down, and sideways. And I don't really care. Generally, I don't really care because I know that I'll come back home. You know, I'll come back to my mental health.
So what would you say, that you have faith? Is that why you're so confident that you can come back?
Well, I don't know, because it used to really matter to me that my consciousness was really high, and I would do things to get my consciousness really high. Like, for example, I would listen to SID tapes, SID recordings to get my consciousness up. And I was very conscientious about my consciousness.
Right.
It's like, and now I don't really care.
Yeah, I guess that. I see where you're coming from.
You know, in other words, it's like, I know, let's see, what do I know? I don't know what I know. It just doesn't matter to me, because I know I'm going to end up in equilibrium. I know I'm going to end up in balance. You know, I know I'm going to end up in my mental health. You know, no matter where I go in my mind. But that said, there are ways in which I use my free will to keep me. There are ways that I am conscientious about the way I think about things. There are habits that I've built where it's like, I'll say to myself, don't go there.
Yeah.
You know, I'll start to think in a direct, I'll say, don't go there. There's no cheese down that rat hole. So I built habits of mental health, or habits of keeping myself in balance, or in a good frame of mind. So I think that now I'm kind of answering the question as I'm thinking it through, because I didn't really know the answer. And I think over the last, because it's been almost 50 years since I met Sid. And I think I've built good habits of thinking that keep me close to home for the most part. Over time, I've built good habits of thinking. Mm-hmm. I've used my thinking in ways that help me. Like, for example, I have a position, a thought position, a belief, a thought of getting over myself. Okay. Like mental hygiene. It's like I get over myself. I don't let myself indulge
Another way
hurt
is,
feelings or negativity.
yeah.
Yeah.
So another way to say it is you don't react to your experience.
Well, I don't, yeah, I react less to and I think, that keeps my consciousness good.
Yeah.
Like you asked, how do you keep your consciousness good? It's like I've just built good thought habits over the last 50 years. Because I've learned, like, if I indulge this thinking, I get this feeling that I don't want. So I've learned to not go there. But there's no perfection. I mean, there are times that I go there but I'm generally good about staying away from certain ways of thinking. Like, for example, our life was about travel, which we can't do anymore because of George's health. And so when people, my friends who all travel, they'll tell me where they go, I can get into jealousy and the feeling and thought of jealousy and envy. As soon as I go there, I go, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, get quiet. Don't get quiet. Now that works for me because I'm in this intense feeling of jealousy and envy, and then I just sink out of it.
That seems very realistic.
Yeah, it's because, again, this is such a practical psychology. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's just the answer. It's the answer to keeping yourself mentally healthy. It's like, watch where you're thinking. Don't go there.
Yeah.
Don't go over there. Go over there. Get quiet. See, that's the other thing. It's like I've gotten into habits of quiet.
Yeah.
Now, this is new for me because I hadn't really thought about it, that I've built over the years habits of thinking that help me stay in a nice feeling, in a feeling of resiliency. That's what I call mental health or well-being. That's, for me, I call it resiliency. The resiliency of spirit. That's what I want. Like when people want abundance, I want resiliency of spirit in abundance.
Yeah.
In other words, thought takes my spirit down. Whoa, wait a minute. I want my spirit to go up.
Beautiful. The next one is a comment. And it says, it's interesting how Linda says to George, oh, you don't mind? Oh, I mind. So mind is a verb that describes what we do with our personal mind. But Linda said, when she gets quiet, she lets universal mind take the wheel and steer her out of a situation or circumstance that she doesn't like.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Beautifully said.
Mm-hmm. It's beautifully said.
Next one is a question. It says, some people I have talked to say that our subconscious sits deep in our body and that the body remembers trauma. What do you think about that?
See, I don't know. I have no feeling for it or no experience of it. See, it matters to me what my experience is of what it means to be human and what it means to have consciousness, thought, and mind. it matters to me, my experience, and I can talk from my experience, but I don't have an experience of what she's talking about. So I can't, if I talked about it, it would all be intellect.
Yeah.
And I just don't go there. I just don't talk from my intellect unless I find myself doing it by mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's good,
Yeah.
good answer.
I just have no understanding of that. Whether it's true or not true, I have no idea.
Next question says, how to deal with physical symptoms that go with anxiety and this kind of thinking, when it is not enough to get present because you feel it not only in your thinking, but in your body. It is so hard to be okay with it when your body is screaming danger.
Now, that would be a good question for Linda.
Well, you know, let's see. I know that I know how to answer it. I just have to find. I just have to find it. Because it's true when some people more than others have, when they get really frightened or anxious or angry, they have intense emotions. They can get very symptomatic in their body, and that can be scary. Now, I've had that happen to me.
What?
Well, after George had his stroke, when he was in the hospital, I lived in anxiety and I lived in panic attacks for like the first week. So my anxiety was very much in my body. And I remember I was in the hospital and I was having the symptoms of anxiety. A panic attack can be the same symptoms as a heart attack. And that's why people in panic attacks go to the ER. Okay, so I'm having these experiences of chest pain and difficulty breathing. And I'm thinking, oh, am I having a heart attack or is this a panic attack? And I'm thinking, because I'm right near the ER, I could just go to the ER. And I'm thinking, no, I don't have time.
Yeah.
I don't have time to go to the ER. I have too much to do. I'm just betting this is a panic attack. But see, luckily, I could see it. It didn't bother me that I was having panic attacks. For some reason, it wasn't, because I knew what they were. I wish I wasn't having them. In other words, it was a pain in the ass having panic attacks. But I knew what they were, so I was just going through them and ignoring them. See? Now, if I didn't know what they were, then I think it would have been a problem for me. I would have been freaked out. I would have gone to the ER. But the fact that I knew that it was just my body reacting to my intense worry about George and what was going to happen to him and what was going to happen to our life, I got into an intense worry. And that's all panic attacks are intense anxiety or worry that hits your adrenals, your adrenal glands, and then all hell breaks loose in your body. and it'll resolve. It's your body will resolve it as your mind calms down. Your body resolves it, and then you start worrying again, and then it hits your adrenals, and then your body goes crazy. But if you understand that that's all that's happening, it helps. It just helps to understand the logic of how intense emotions can hit your adrenal glands and cause havoc. But as you calm down, your body calms down. Now, for me, just to understand that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it'd be like if, say you didn't know what a cold was and you had a cold, a cold, being sick with a cold, and you didn't know what it was, it could freak you out. Like, what's wrong with me? I'm all stuffed up and I'm hot and I'm sneezing and I don't feel good. And you could freak out if you didn't know it was a cold. But because it's a cold and it's going to go away, you forget about it. You just live your life and feel miserable, but you just kind of put it off your mind because, oh, it's just a cold. I don't feel good. It'll go away. Well, to me, when the body takes on the emotions somatically, that's the way it looks to me, like a cold, and it will go away. I don't know if that helps.
No, that's good.
Well, I know, but I don't know if it helped the person that asked the question.
I know.
Well, I'm sure it did. It was a beautiful analogy. Thank you, George. Thank you, Linda. We have several more questions, but unfortunately, we have reached the end of our time together for the day.
Well, if you have the time, we have the time to do 2 more. Okay,
do it. Masha, Olena, do you have the time to do 2 more? Yes. All right. Beautiful. Okay. Next one says, when we see that someone is upset with us, we can tell that is all you're thinking and let go. But when someone does something and I get hurt, how do I tell myself if it is just my thinking?
Well, you have to see it that's your thinking. It's not about telling yourself. You actually have to see that you're thinking about the experience of hurt.
Or another way to say it, you're being fooled.
Well, you have to say more about that.
Yeah. In other words, the way I see it is the person is fooled into thinking that it's, I've lost my, I don't know what I'm saying.
Do you lose your place?
Yeah, I lost my place.
You lost this place. See, people don't like being hurt. They get insulted. When they feel hurt, that means they've been insulted. And their pride or their ego steps in and they have to do something about it. See? Well, so you think a lot. Like for me, I thought a lot about what I should or shouldn't do. And it would hold me in this place, this experience of having been hurt. Now, when I took all that thinking away and just felt the hurt and just got over the feeling of hurt, just let the feeling of hurt dissipate. And then it would put me back in equilibrium, in resiliency.
Right.
That's what I wanted. I wanted resiliency, my resiliency back, my peace of mind back, my well-being back. That I wanted it back. And I was willing to give up the insult and what to do about it and whether they were wrong. And I didn't care. I cared more about my state of mind.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers you.
No.
That was good. You like that?
I like that.
I really like that. It helped me for sure.
Okay. But it really is Marina, it's really putting your well-being above all of that other stuff. The ego and the right, wrong, and the fairness. It just puts your well-being first.
Making it the priority.
Yeah, it makes it a priority.
Make it a priority, right?
Yeah.
I think you're going to love this next question.
Okay, good.
Where does intention come from? What does it depend on?
Oh, that's a fantastic.
That's a heck of a question.
See, I never thought about that.
That's very profound.
But see, intention is like putting a foot forward when you walk. You know, when you go for a walk, you stand up, you put your foot forward. It's like intention is, I want to go here.
Well, that's a simple.
Yeah, it's
definition.
really simple. It's like
Yeah.
people, like, I think intention is innate in people. It's innate. It's part of your hard drive, so to speak. It's part of your being. It's just part of everyone, whether they are aware of it or not, will intend to do something. Like, children, they're constantly intending. They want to play, they want to draw, they want to sing. They're engaging in life, they're involved. So another way of talking about it, intention, would be involvement in life, being involved, moving out into life. I think people naturally intend and naturally want to be involved, unless some kind of thinking gets in their way and blocks it. They want to. When you're in your well-being is when you put your foot forward into life.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, we will try to gather all the questions that are still left to answer, and we will try to address them in the next sessions tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Like Linda said at the beginning, it is such an inspiration to see you here.
It was so inspiring when I saw how many of you. I mean, it did my heart good. I thank you for showing up. I really appreciate it, because everyone that gets hit by the principles, hit by this understanding, it's going to change. It will change humanity. It will change humanity. It will change the world. It will. So thank you for showing up.
Marina, we really appreciated your helping us.
We appreciate you.
Yeah,
you doing this. This is huge contribution.
You done good.
It's a pleasure, and I want to thank you for showing up as well and contributing in your way, and Masha and Olenka and Kate and
yes, thank you. The interpreters, the host, yeah.
This beautiful effort. Please remember, we are meeting tomorrow and the day after tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, which is 3 p.m. Central European Time, 5 p.m. Moscow. So it's a different schedule than today. We're meeting a little earlier. But we will have, again, two beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sessions intended to keep deepening and allowing that deep intelligence to steer us in the right direction. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and hopefully we will see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye. Goodbye. Thank you.